Brilliant. Well, good morning, everybody. So welcome to this Financial Wellbeing webinar. So today we're going to look at how you can support both yourself but also your teams to cope with the cost of living increases that we're all having to deal with this year. Now, we've done a few webinars before, but for those who haven't attended one, my name is Sarah Steele. I'm the head of financial wellbeing for a company called Better with Money. And this is what we do. We're an independent company. We provide money guidance in the workplace, really to help people to understand their personal finances, but with that ultimate aim of reducing money stress. And I'm going to be your presenter for the next hour. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we start, just to say that today I am providing information only. This isn't advice. I'm just trying to give you the tools and the knowledge to help you support your people with their finances, but also your own budgeting and money as well. Now, we're also, Better with Money is not connected to any other company. As I go through, I'm undoubtedly going to be mentioning companies, websites, apps, but it's just because I think that they've got some really good services that you can take advantage of, not because we're getting any financial backhanders to mention them. So yeah, pop anything in the chat. I probably will be asking for a little bit of audience participation, particularly when we get to some of those money saving tips. It would be great to hear what some of you are doing so we can kind of create that community feel. But so yeah, put anything in the chat that you want to, any questions, any tips, and we should be finished at about 11. Right, so for the next hour, we're going to start off by just looking at that relationship between money and health and why it's so important to take control of money. Then we'll be looking a little bit of what's happening. I'm sure we all know that our bills have gone up, but what's happening with the cost of living increases? Why has it happened? What can we expect this year? And then we'll be looking at those tips to support financial well-being. And then we'll bring it all together in an action plan and have a bit of time at the end for Q&A as well. So I just wanted to start then with a reminder as to how money and health are linked together. And it's really well researched that money is the biggest cause of stress. And what happens when we get stressed? We stop sleeping properly, we might get argumentative with the people around us, but also it can affect our ability to concentrate at work. And all of this starts to negatively impact on our happiness and our health. Now, there was some research carried out by the Money and Pension Service last year, and that found, unfortunately, that 63% of adults regularly feel anxious about money, and a quarter of us worry about money every single day. And that's hardly surprising when you look at the stats around saving. There's about a fifth of adults at the moment struggling to pay even essential bills. 43% of adults have less than £1,000 in savings, 11% of people with no savings at all. So, of course, if there's emergencies that happen in life, like they do, the car breaks down, the boiler breaks down, or bills start to go up, it means if you haven't got anything in savings, you start to worry, you start to get into more debt in order to pay for those things. And as a nation, we just don't like talking about money. And on average, people would much prefer to bury their head in the sand for over 2 years with money and debt problems before they seek out and get the help that they need. And all the time, that stress is building and that can lead to physical or mental illness and time off work. And that is why having the tools to support the people you work with their financial well-being is as important as ever. Now, we hear the term financial wellbeing used a lot. I mean, certainly in the last probably 4 or 5 years, it's really one of those terms that's come to the fore. So what does it mean? Well, I'm going to start with what it doesn't mean, actually. Financial well-being is not about having high salaries or lots of material things. If you're financially well, it means you've got enough money to pay the bills, with enough money left over to do the things that you want to do, whether that is buy a house or retire early. And only when you feel that you're in control and you've got the money to do that, can you achieve financial well-being. Now, there's no doubt at the moment that it's going to be a real struggle for the majority of people to be in that kind of saving space at the moment. But anything we can do to help people to feel in control, to understand how much life is costing, and to understand where they can get that money from or where they can reduce costs in other areas in order to pay for these increased costs, the better. And that will give a really, really good foundation for money going forward. Now, before we look at the tips for improving financial well-being, I just want to look a little bit more closely with what's going on in the world. Now we have all experienced energy bills, fuel, food, and just general living expenses have all increased over the last year, but it really has been the energy bills that has been at the forefront of the news. So since this time last year, our energy costs have pretty much doubled, and the average household bill at the moment, just for energy alone, is about £2,500 a year. So well over £200 a month. And at the moment, there is an energy price guarantee in place. So basically, as the energy prices were going up and up and up, the government stepped in at the end of last year and said we're going to put an energy price guarantee in place, and it's going to be here until April 2023. But at that stage, we may see our energy prices go up again, and all the news is preparing us for the fact that costs are going to go up by about another 20%. Now, of course, when energy prices increase, that isn't just affecting us as individuals, it's affecting businesses all around the country and all around the world as well. Because if they're paying more for their fuel and their energy, it's costing them more to produce their products and to ship them and to get them out to stores and all the rest of it. And those increased costs are then passed on to us as the consumer. And that's why everything else is increasing as well. Things like food, streaming services, and other products. So when prices start to rise, like they have done over the last year, that pushes up inflation. And all inflation means is how much do things cost today compared with 1 year ago? And at the moment, inflation's running at about 10.5% in the UK. So quite simply, life is just costing us 10.5% more than it did last February. Now, the way that the Bank of England tries to combat this is they start to raise interest rates. And the reason they do that is because they want to encourage more people to save money than to spend money. They want to make sure that people are getting more returns on their savings. Because if people start spending less and there's less demand for things, the price of those things start to come down. The more demand there is for something, the price goes up. So that is why pretty much 9 times last year, the Bank of England rose the interest rates. At the beginning of the year, our base rate was 0.1. By the end of 2022, our base rate had gone to 3.5. And you may have seen in the news on the 2nd of Feb last week, our base rate interest rate went up to 4%. And we do have another interest rate review coming on the 23rd of March. Nobody really knows. I wish I had a crystal ball. Maybe there's one more interest rate rise in there. Before the end of last year, the predictions were that the interest rates would get to about 4.5%, 4.8%, something like that. Now, as I say, when interest rates are good and up, that's great for savers. It's great if you've got money in the bank because you're getting more return on those savings. But for anybody borrowing money on mortgages, credit cards, loans, it becomes worse for those people because it means that they're having to pay back more money in order to borrow that amount in the first place. And this is where this year particularly a lot of people are going to come a little bit unstuck with the interest rates, because it may well be that people have had mortgages, they've had fixed mortgages that have been the same amount for the last couple of years. And those fixed mortgages would have been based on the interest rates a couple of years ago. Now, typically, mortgage rates are about 1 to 2% above the base rate. So if you'd fixed your mortgage 2 years ago, it might be that you're only paying 1.5% interest on that mortgage. If you're coming up to the end of a fixed mortgage now and you try to refix it, the interest rate is likely to be 5 or 6% at the moment. So lots of people are starting to struggle and think, how on earth am I going to pay my mortgage when the interest rate has gone up so far? And I mean, one of the things I'd absolutely say, whether it's you or whether it's somebody around you, getting a good mortgage broker who can advise you properly is absolutely key in that situation. So, I mean, it sounds like doom and gloom. We are going to give some tools as to how to deal with this. But how generally are people dealing with these increases in prices? Well, I've just taken an extract from a survey that was done by Ipsos at the end of last year. Understandably, it shows that many people are going to cut costs in areas like socialising, holidays, delaying those big purchase decisions. Maybe those new sofas are going to have to wait another year. And as you go down the list, you'll see people are using cars less frequently, so they don't have to pay for as much fuel. And particularly trying to save money on the heating and the food, which really have been, to my mind, the two things that have gone up in price the most. I mean, I remember kind of probably this time last year, I could get 4 pints of milk for £1. I'm hard pressed to get it for under about 180 at the moment. So milk in itself has nearly doubled in price. So I think people are recognising that their firms, the companies, the people they work for are trying to do everything they can, but it just isn't economically viable for a lot of organisations to give inflationary increases on pay rises. You know, you'd have to be giving people 10, 11% pay rises, and a lot of companies would go bust if they did that. So actually, individuals are having to look themselves at their own money situations, what they're spending money on, in order to find ways to afford these increases in price. Now, before I thought we'd run through what people can do practically, I just thought we'd look at, you know, how much life is likely to cost people, so that, you know, when you're talking to people, if you know what their salaries are, you can start to see where they might fall. Now, a few years ago, the Pension and Lifetime Savings Association put together some figures around how much money you need to live for a minimum lifestyle, a moderate lifestyle, and a comfortable lifestyle. And these figures were revised just at the end of 2022. There was some research done by Loughborough University to update these figures for the cost of living increases. And all these figures that you see up here are after tax. So these are the net figures. So as you can see, the research suggests that to have a minimum level of standard of living at the moment as a single person, you would need to be bringing in £12,800. And roughly speaking, that means you're spending about £54 a week on a food shop. You don't have a car. And your holiday consists of 1 week away in the UK every year. And you allow yourself about £580 a year for clothes and shoes, so just under £50 a month. Now, bearing in mind, this hasn't taken into account the likely 20% increase in energy prices that we've got coming up, and the fact that people's mortgages are likely to go up as well. And even if people are in rented accommodation, the landlords are likely to be seeing increases in their payments, which they could well be passing on to the people renting from them. So life is really going to get a lot tougher for some. I mean, you can look at the moderate and the comfortable as well, but you can see there's really a significant amount of money needed really just to live a minimum lifestyle. What I did at the bottom is I had a look at the national living wage, which this year is £9.50 an hour. If I said, right, people work for 35 hours a week and they worked every week of the year, and we took off the tax and the national insurance, it means that the take-home pay for somebody on national living wage is about 15,780. So just very slightly above that minimum lifestyle. But you can see, you know, just a little tip in energy prices or food prices can really mean that people are starting to live on the poverty line. I did see an awful stat recently that suggests 1 in 7 households in the UK at the moment are reliant on food banks to eat. And we've got into that sorry state of affairs where there are now more food banks in the UK than McDonald's. So I hope that just gives you some context really of what people are dealing with, and also for your own situation as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run through an action plan that everyone should be following, actually, not just while we're going through a cost of living crisis. Excuse me a minute. Felt that sneeze coming on. You know, whatever somebody's, thank you, whatever somebody's situation, you know, whether they're a young person, whether they're an old person, whether at the beginning of the career, end of the career, wherever they are, following this action plan can really get those financial foundations in place. Now, as we go through, some of the steps that I'm talking through are definitely going to seem like common sense. Some of them you're going to heard before, but hopefully there's going to be something in here that either you can take away to improve your situation, and certainly to help anybody that comes to you for help at work. Yeah, Thanks for that comment, Jenny. Said a number of people are seeing kind of in-house food banks, and that's a really nice place. I mean, I'm going to put the up at the end. If you know people that need food banks, the Trussell Trust is the national charity that's running the majority of the food banks in the UK at the moment. If you go onto their website, and I've given the details at the end, not only can you find out where you can get vouchers for food banks, but also where you want to volunteer. But yeah, there's been quite a lot of sort of community fridges. I don't know if that's sort of really what you're mentioning, where maybe companies are having kind of a food cupboard or a fridge where you can just take things if you need to. You can put stuff in, you can take stuff out. And yeah, it's lovely to see that people are filling up cupboards at work with breakfast cereal, pastas, things like that, to really help people without them having to ask. They can just take something out, take it home in the evening to help with their situation. So brilliant. And I'm going to be giving a few more ideas as well as to where people can get some help with food along the way. Okay, so let's start with these tips then. So the first one, and this really is the foundation to getting money under control, is that everybody really should know their budget. You know, often the reason that people get themselves into financial difficulty or overspending a month is because they're just not aware of how much their bills and other living costs and all the nice to haves are costing them. And before you know it, if you haven't set out your budget, if you don't know what your spend is, suddenly everything you've earned has gone out of the window, and you kind of left wondering where it's all gone. You know, and a budget should be done by everybody, regardless of age, salary, or where they are in their career. So it's really the first stage to getting people back on track. And quite simply, a budget is kind of written down on paper. What have I got coming in every month? So that might be salary, it might be benefits, versus what costs have I got going out. Now, you don't need anything fancy to do a budget. I mean, all you need really is a piece of paper and a pen. Divide that paper into two, and on the left-hand side, write down all the money you've got coming in, and on the right-hand side, write everything that you've got going out. However, there, of course, are lots of budgeting tools around if people want something a bit more sophisticated. A lot of the banks nowadays are starting to include budget planners within the online banking apps that people have got access to. We've got on the Better with Money website, we've got free budget planners that people have got access to. And we also link through to the interactive budget planner that's been designed by Money Helper as well. But there's Step Change, there's all kinds of ones out there. But, you know, that shouldn't be an excuse that people don't have access, literally a pen and paper, and write it down. And as people are writing down what they've got going out, try to encourage them to think about that spending in three ways. The first one is that an essential spend? Is that something you absolutely have to pay for every month just to live? So things are going to be like mortgage, rent, council tax, essential food, travel to work, those sorts of things. Or is that payment a debt repayment? So is it something like a finance on car? Is it a credit card payment? Is it a loan? Put that into a separate category. Or is that payment the fun stuff? The reason why actually we all go to work, hopefully, to do all the stuff that we want to do, going out with friends, buying maybe the clothes that you don't need. And putting the spending into those three categories is really going to help when we look at the different things that we can do. Now, as we go through and do a budget, you know, try not to do it off the top of your head, or encourage somebody else not to do it off the top of their head. They might know how much the rent is, the council tax, but actually you will undoubtedly forget those times where you're like, oh, I just need a birthday card. Oh, I'll pop onto Amazon and spend £2. Or I need a pint of milk. I'm going to go around the corner, and suddenly you've spent £20 because there are all those special offers at the end of it, or by the counter, or you buy the lottery ticket. So really, it is important to get an accurate picture of how much life is how much life is costing you, to go through your bank statement line by line by line, and also credit cards as well, and just get everything down. It's not always going to be the most comfortable of exercises to do, because it really does highlight where that overspend comes from. But actually, that's what we need to achieve by this, because we need to work out where we can start saving some money. And whilst doing a budget, it's really important as well to try and remember those things that happen once a year. Things like car insurance, MOT, holidays, Christmas. Now this time of the year is a brilliant time to actually work out how much Christmas last year cost you, or if you've got other festivities or festivals that you celebrate, because you can go through the bank statements for those months, see how much the total is, and then try and budget for it throughout the year. If Christmas is going to cost you £1,200, budget for it £100 in each month. That might seem like a really high figure, but the average family spends an extra £750 in December, and most people start buying presents in October. So I think what I'm saying is, if any time is going to be taken to take control of finances, doing the budget is that one place where really should be taking a bit of time to get this down on paper accurately. And as I say, very quickly, you will see where that overspend comes from. Now, typically, I don't know if anybody wants to share where they think their overspend comes from, and I won't beat you up if you don't, but typically when I'm having these conversations, most people come back to me and say it's food, it's takeaways, it's Deliveroos, it's the Just Eats, it's the pop into the corner shop to pick up the pint of milk and spending £20, whatever it is. So, and it's these sorts of things that we really need to take a look at. So the next tip, once that budget's been done, is to look at, right, where can I start to cut down? Coffee, I love that. Yeah, coffee to get us all going in the morning. And clothes. Clothes is a big one. It's all too easy nowadays, isn't it? With online shopping, you don't even need to go into town to buy it. You just go onto and all of that. And Kindle books, at least Kindle books are educational. But yeah, there's definitely some themes coming through, and food and drinks. On the coffee, I mean, I don't know whether I know you have got Pret near you, but Pret do this wonderful monthly subscription, which costs £25. I think they've got an introductory fee of £12.50 for the month, and you can get up to 5 hot drinks a day or frappes in Pret for just £25 a month. So if you haven't looked at that and you are obsessed with going to get coffee outside, that might be one thing to look at. Right, so what can we do to reduce costs? Well, probably the first thing is on online banking apps, or if you're talking to somebody else about their budget, just get them to have a look at what the direct debits and standing orders are that are coming out of their bank account, because often there'll be something there that just isn't needed. I mean, nowadays it's all too easy to get caught up in streaming services. Things like Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Amazon Music, Deezer, Spotify, all of these things. And before you know it, your streaming services are costing you an absolute fortune. It might be that you only watch Netflix, but you're paying for 3. Is there something you can cancel? This time of year is that time of year where people have signed up to the gym and probably aren't going anymore. Or maybe like me, the last one I had was a magazine. I really love magazines, and sometimes I'll sit down and read it, but I started ordering them through the post, and all they did was pile up on the side, and I never had time, so I cancelled that. That I had quite a sad story the other day. I was doing this face-to-face in Lincoln, and a guy checked his, and he said, oh my goodness, I've been paying pet insurance for a dog that had sadly passed away a couple of years ago. So really do check those standing orders and those direct debits just to see if there's anything obvious to cancel. Once that's been done, then it really is making sure that you're not wasting money on the essentials, things like the insurances. Insurances is something that unless you review them every single year, those prices do start to just rack up. Even if you're the best customer in the world, you've never claimed on your insurance, it doesn't seem to matter. It just creeps up and up. So my best advice for insurances is when you get that letter saying that your insurance is coming to an end or it's going to auto renew, is at that point, which is 3 weeks before, do your homework. Just go onto one of the comparison websites, put in the cover that you've got at the moment, and see what price you can get in the market for the same level of cover. If you get a cheaper one, you don't need to switch, just contact your current insurer and say, I've done my homework. I've got a cheaper price. Will you match it? And 9 times out of 10, they absolutely will. And it's a lot easier to stay with your current insurer, but to drive them down on price rather than keep switching. But they will only match that price if you've got the evidence that you found it somewhere else. But we couldn't mention cost saving without looking at reducing our energy costs. And so I'd absolutely like some sharing here. And you're being very great in the chat, and I can see it all. And yes, we'll be sending through the slides if you complete that evaluation form. But I'd like you to now put in the chat as to what you do at the moment about reducing your energy. But I'll just come up with a couple of things while you're thinking about that. The first thing actually is to get a smart meter, because having a smart meter gives you the tools and the knowledge as to how much things are costing you. I know that some companies at the moment have got a shortage of smart meters, and if they have, you can use, we've got an appliance budgeting app on our Better With Money website where you can go in and you can see, you say, oh, I use the kettle 3 times a day, and it will tell you how much it's costing you. But generally speaking, anything that's got a heating element to it, so hair dryers, kettles, tumble dryers, ovens, they're the things that are really expensive to run. So trying to cut down on those sorts of things are ideal. So hanging up your clothes rather than using the tumble dryer, using a microwave rather than the stove can cut down, and turning down your thermostat by just 1 degree can save up to kind of 3 to 5% on your energy bill. I love the one that says that you have to follow your kids around and turn off the lights. Yes, I did that this morning, actually. And actually in our other office, we've got those energy saving bulbs where, if someone's been out of the room, trouble is when I'm doing a webinar in there and I don't move too much, it turns off in the middle of the webinar. Yeah, someone's right. Smart meters often can make people worry about outgoing money, but actually, if they're only using the things that they need to do, it can make you feel that way. What I will come on to in a minute is a lot of the energy companies do have hardship funds for those people that are getting into energy arrears and really can't afford it. So I would recommend that people phone up their energy companies if they're getting themselves into that situation. But the thing that I was hoping would come up, and it absolutely has, is the air fryer. Absolutely. Do you know what? I had mine for a couple of years and I did use it a little bit. But since I've seen all the articles on just how much money you can save on air fryers, it's like the centre of our world right now. So apparently, according to the Telegraph, if you use an air fryer versus an oven for the same amount of food across a year, what would cost you £350 in energy to cook in an oven would only cost you £55 in an air fryer, mainly because it uses less energy, it's smaller, it recirculates the hot air, things get cooked more quickly. I really have taken it on, and there's been brilliant cookbooks, brilliant recipes online, and it does save you an absolute fortune. The other sorts of things would be like heating yourself, not your home, so those electric blankets, those lovely Oodie things. And a few people I've spoken to have said they fill up flasks of water in the morning, so they only have to boil the kettle once, and then they've got hot water for the day. And it is going to be things like that at the moment that are really going to help people through. Because we're just trying to, although there's that energy price cap, it's only a cap per unit. The more units we use, the more expensive our energy is going to be. So as I say, if you look at the Better With Money website, we've got some budgeting tools and a handy calculator tool there about energy as well. But what I'd really like to talk about now, oh, sorry, I didn't mention the Energy Saving Trust. That is a brilliant website that helps you to think about what you can do with your home that will save you energy. Things like putting a jacket on your hot water tank. They cost about £30 from Amazon, but they can save you about £80 in a year through lost energy. Things like putting more insulation in your loft. And all the way up to having solar panels and how long it would take you to pay back. So the Energy Saving Trust is a brilliant website to get some of those tips. But now I want to move on to food, because according to the Office of National Statistics, we spend nearly a fifth of our income on food and non-alcoholic drinks. So we're basically working a week, a month, more or less, just to pay for our food. Now, what can we do on this? And again, any tips that you have would be more welcome, but I'll put them through. So The first one is just doing a weekly meal plan can save you up to 20% on your food shop. And we do have some food plans on our website again. And the reason it saves you money, one is you're only buying the ingredients that you need, so you're not wasting any. But actually, writing a meal plan and sticking to it means that you're not being tempted by all those lovely things in the supermarket. You know, my biggest tip to anybody is stay out of the supermarket if you can. If you can click and collect, if you can even pay a small delivery charge, it will probably be better for you in the long run. Because the moment we step foot in that shop, they are doing things to entice us to buy. So, you know, when you get the lovely food smells as you're walking in and you're like, oh, I'll buy that loaf of bread that I didn't really need. Or you go in for washing detergent, you know it's on that aisle, you go to that aisle when they've moved the whole shop about. That is so that you walk past all the other lovely things to pick up. So yeah, and I can see somebody else has said a meal plan can really help them. And actually, I mean, I'd be interested to know, we use HelloFresh in our house. We didn't do it so much at the time from a cost perspective, because actually if we cost out the meals, you could probably get those meals more cheaply just buying the ingredients. But actually what HelloFresh has done for our family is a few things. One, it stopped us all going, what are we going to eat tonight? Two, it stopped us popping down to the corner shop in order to pick up a couple of last minute bits. That in itself has saved us a fortune. But it's also actually helped our teenage kids start to cook, because they just they read the recipes. So HelloFresh, Gusto, things like that, particularly if you get the money off vouchers, can be really cost effective and stop you from spending too much. That's my experience anyway. Yeah, someone's saying they do online shopping to avoid on a delivery saver. Yeah, because we use Tesco, so I pay an annual fee, so I can have as many deliveries as I want within that, and I probably only end up paying like £1 a delivery or something because I use that. Yeah, someone else has said about HelloFresh, just saves a load of hassle. It really does. And you don't have to worry about the food. Not shopping whilst hungry is a massive one, because you're more tempted by all the goodies. Yeah, and the batch cooking and things like using slow cookers as well can be really cost effective. So that you don't have to cook at the end of the long day. You've got the stuff in the freezer that you can just bung in the microwave and all the rest of it. It's interesting to see how many of you have signed up to HelloFresh. And yeah, do you know what? Someone's mentioned portion control. Absolutely, for me, I'm a feeder. You know, when I serve up dinners, they're massive, and I think people just don't need that. Yeah, that's helpful to know as well. Talking about different shops for delivery, somebody uses a Ocado, said slightly more expensive, but actually very few substitutions, really good quality. App is easy and ends up saving you money overall. So yeah, it sounds like lots of people agree with me on that. What I really wanted to mention though, because there's lots of lovely TV programs, aren't there, like Eat Well for Less, that talk about food planning and bulk buying and bulk cooking and all of those lovely things. But I really wanted to mention these two food apps, which are Olio and Too Good To Go. I don't know if anybody's used them. Again, I'd be really interested in your experience if you have. And thank you for the other tips on keeping yourself warm. People were saying about fingerless gloves and blankets and all the rest of it, so that's great, thank you. But yeah, if you have used Olio or Too Good To Go, put it into the chat, but let me go run through them now. So Too Good To Go is a free app or a website, you can do either, and lots and lots of food retailers all throughout the UK and all throughout the world, actually. Both of these apps are global. Will put food on there when they're about to take that money off the shelves. Take that food off the shelf. So I'll give you an example. You can go onto the food app. Morrison's offer, it was £3.29 last time I looked, a fruit and veg bag. I can go onto the app in the morning. I reserve that fruit and veg bag. I have to go into the Morrison's store in the afternoon and pick it up. But in there, I have at least £12 worth of stuff. Now, I can't choose it. It's whatever they need to get rid of. But actually, if you can be a bit creative, if you like soups, if you're happy to freeze fruit, make smoothies, all of that kind of stuff, it's a really good deal. We also, our local BP garage has got an M&S food to go. I did one last Friday. It was £4 for the food bag. And when I got it home, the kids loved it. There was like I don't know, 16 to 20 pounds worth of stuff in there. We had onion rings, sweet potato fries, blueberries, pork pies, all kinds of lovely things. And again, just saved us lots and lots of money. And places like Greg's, even Toby Carvery, pizza restaurants, things like that. Yeah, someone else is saying the magic bags from Olio, from Too Good To Go can be really great. Somebody I know said he used Too Good To Go last year. He's got 3 young kids and he reckoned it saved him about £1,000 in food. So that's a massive, massive reduction. Yeah, someone else said Costa. Oh, okay, the Costa one you didn't get right. You probably got all the pastries, did you? And the cinnamon swirls and all of that. But you know what? If you can freeze them, get them out if you've got guests, it might just help. The other one, Olio, slightly different to Too Good To Go in that the food is free. Tesco use it, Asda use it. You can become an Olio food hero where you go and deliver that free food to other people. But also, if you've got things, you can use Olio yourself. If you've got an allotment and too many potatoes or too much rhubarb, you can advertise that on there and people can come around and pick it up as well. So Olio and Too Good To Go are really community feels, trying to make sure they cut down on waste, help the environment, but also provide people with really good quality but low cost food that's going to help, bring down the cost of that food shop. I think there was an article, it might be the Daily Mail, and somebody had said they brought their food shop down to £4 a week because they use these 2 apps regularly. So lovely to see that people are making the most of this. But do you know what? If you've got people struggling around you, just make sure they know about these. It can make a massive, massive difference. Yeah, the £1 fruit and veg boxes from Lidl, somebody's just put in. Fantastic. They put them after the checkout, past its best before date. But do you know what? Things you can keep using as long as they haven't gone totally mouldy. Shove them in some soup and it's a winner. The last thing on this slide that I wanted to mention is petrolprices.com. Again, another app or a website. So if you have got to fill up with fuel, you download the app, it will pick up your location. You'll say how far you're prepared to go for your petrol. 1 mile, 2 miles, anything up to 20 miles, and it'll tell you the cheapest forecourts in your area. When I was at Lincoln at the back end of the summer, we did it. Within 1 mile, there were 3 petrol stations, and there was 40 pence a litre difference on the fuel. Unbelievable. Yeah, someone said Costco is easily the cheapest for fuel. It absolutely is. You do need to be a member of Costco in order to get that cheap fuel. And that will come up on petrol prices as well. But if you know anybody that can get that, if you've got a membership, that's absolutely the place to go. Asda and Sainsbury's weren't normally cheapest, but interestingly, when I was in Lincoln that day, Sainsbury's were way more expensive. I might have just been an anomaly for that day because normally we find that as well. But check out petrol prices. You might be surprised. You might find it's your local independent petrol station that's got the best prices. So really the aim there is just to give you some ideas of how you or people you know can bring down costs, because all we're trying to do here is stop wasting money so that we can free that money up to pay for the essentials like the increase in energy and essential food and things like that. Now, what I want to do is to move on to being as efficient as we can with debt, because debt becomes an issue if suddenly we can't pay it off, we have very high interest on it, and then every bit of money we're paying towards that debt is only paying off the interest, not the actual debt itself. So I now want to look at how we can do that. But in order for somebody to know how to manage their debt, they do need to understand their credit score. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time on this. Now, when we get to 18 in the UK, the credit reference agencies, which are Experian, Equifax and TransUnion, they start to build a history of our financial transactions. So every time we open a bank account, every time we have a new utility bill, every time we apply for a credit card, all of those things, or a mortgage, they will go onto our credit file. And then every time we want to borrow money, the lender will look at our credit file and say, is this person a good borrower of money? Do they borrow it? Do they pay it back on time? And all our credit score is the numerical representation of what our credit file says about us. The higher our score, the more likely we are to be approved for credit, things like mortgage, but it also qualifies us for the lower insurance rates. The lower our credit score, the less likely we're going to have those options available to us. So if you haven't checked your credit score before, it is freely available through apps like Credit Karma, Experian and ClearScore. I mean, they're all pretty much the same. You know, when one does something better on their app, the other one will follow. So I've got Credit Karma. I think it's brilliant, but they're all much of a muchness. But make sure you're only downloading the free version. You don't need the paid version. Now, once you've gone onto the app, you'll answer a few questions, you'll get your score. And actually, your score, less worried about what the score is, it's more about which category you fall into. Do you have an excellent credit score, a good, a fair, or a needs improving credit score? And if that credit score does need improving, there are a few things that can help that. The first one is actually to make sure that you do use a credit card sensibly month on month on month. So I'm definitely not saying that somebody should get a credit card, buy stuff they don't need, get themselves into debt and not be able to afford it back, pay it back. I'm definitely not saying that. I'm saying if somebody can get a credit card, get approved for a credit card, use it for something essential like essential food or petrol every month, put that money aside in their bank account and then pay that off in full at the end of each month, because if you pay off your credit card in full, if you pay your credit card off in full, you're never going to pay interest on that. And if you can use it sensibly like that over 6 months, your credit score will start to go up. The other thing is to think about, if you get a credit card, it gives you £1,000 limit. Try not to max out that credit card all the time, because that would suggest to the lenders that you are living beyond your means. If you can regularly just use about 25 to 30% of whatever your credit limit is, then you'll be seen as a sensible borrower. But don't miss a payment on your credit card, because if you do, that will go onto your credit file that you missed a payment and your credit score could reduce by as much as 35%. Now, the other thing that actually it will have more impact on your credit score than you realise is being registered to vote. So do make sure that you are on the electoral roll for the property that you live in, because the lenders will use this information to verify your ID. If you're not registered to vote, then the likelihood is that your score will be lower. And actually making sure that all of your credit accounts, all of your bank accounts, all of your insurances, all of your utility bills are all on the same address will have a really positive impact as well. If you've still got a bank account at an old address or a university address and something at your parents' address, that's going to confuse the lenders and you might get turned down for credit. Now, the main reason, as well as knowing your credit score, that I totally advocate having a credit score app is because it will send you notifications if somebody's trying to do anything fraudulently on your finance, like open an account in your name. So if you haven't got an app, if the person you're talking to hasn't got an app, make sure they download that just to put them in control. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to look at managing debt. And so let's look at a few things that you can do. Now, it's always a good idea to pay off high interest debt before you save. Now, this is because although the savings interest rates have gone up as the base rate's gone up, most banks are still only paying about 2 to 3% on any savings. So you're almost guaranteed that if you have got outstanding credit cards, you'll be paying 20 to 30% interest on those. If you've got an overdraft, you'll be paying about 40% interest on that money. And if you're only getting 2 to 3% in savings, you might as well take that money out in savings and pay it off on the debt. You know, if we look at that example on the top right of the slide there, if you've got £3,000 on a credit card that's outstanding, you're paying 20% interest on that, you're going to be charged £600 interest across the year that you have got to pay back in addition to the £3,000 that you borrowed. If you've got £3,000 in savings, you're earning 3% on that money, you're earning 90% in interest, but it means you'd actually be £510 better off taking that money out of savings, paying it off on the card and then building back up your savings again. But of course, most people get into debt because they haven't got savings. And if that's the case, then it's a bit like a budget. The first thing to do is to write down everything that you owe. Who do you owe that money to? When have you got to pay it by? But most importantly, what is the interest rate on that debt? And the interest rate is often known as the annual percentage rate, or APR. And the higher that number, the worse it is for the borrower, because it means you're paying back more interest in order to pay that back. And the idea is that you should always try and pay off the highest interest debt first and work your way down, although you will need to pay the minimum on all of them. But here is the point of the credit score, because actually the way that you can really bring down debt payments on a month-by-month basis is to bring those debts all together under one credit card or one loan. So let me just run through those two options. The first thing you could do is apply for a 0% credit card. It's known as a balance transfer card. You move over all of your other debts onto that credit card. You'll pay a small upfront fee for moving them over, normally between 2 and 4% of the balance. But once that debt is on that card, you then get an interest-free period. And the better your credit score, the longer that 0% period is going to be. For somebody with a good score at the moment, you can get up to nearly 3 years interest-free in order to pay that debt back. For people with poorer credit scores, it might be limited to 6 months, but that's got to be better than paying 40% on an overdraft or 20% on a store card. Alternatively, if debt is over £5,000, it might be better off for somebody to get a loan with a low interest rate. And at the moment, the interest rates are about 5-6%. But if anybody is going to do this, the key is making sure that you go through an eligibility checker first, just to see which cards and which loans you're going to be approved for based on your own circumstances. The best one I found is Money Saving Expert. Under their cards and loan sections, they've got an eligibility checker. So you fill out the questionnaire and it will give you a list of all the cards and loans that you'll be eligible for. If you've got a credit score app, you'll also be able to find them in there. But if you are speaking to somebody who can't manage their debt, or it's affecting their well-being, it's affecting their ability to work properly, please do encourage them to seek help and not to suffer in silence. You know, debt doesn't just happen to people with gambling issues or drug issues or people in lower paid jobs. To my experience over the last year, it's typically been the middle earners with families and responsibilities that have managed to get themselves into the larger debts just because of the responsibilities that they have. Now, what I would say is that you really shouldn't contact anybody that advertises on TV or puts something through the door saying they can help you with your debt, because they're probably just trying to sell a product that's good for them and not good for the person in debt. Absolutely, the place to go would be one of the debt charities that I put up here. They're all government subsidised. They get money from the government to provide free debt counsellors to help people based on their own situations. But of course, depending on which company you're in, there might also be an employee assistance programme, which is a confidential helpline where often they'll give some debt counselling and information as well. So please do encourage people to reach out and to not suffer in silence. Now, the next part, of course, just as well as trying to reduce costs on a monthly basis, it's just making sure that people are getting all of the income that they're entitled to. So I'm just going to run through a few things. The first one is just to check any government support available to you or that person that's available during the cost of living. And the government have launched a website. It's called Help for Households. If you're up in Scotland, it's called Cost of Living, but you've only got to Google Cost of Living Help and the website will come up. And it details all of the government grants that are being provided to help people through the cost of living crisis, including the £400 energy grant, which we're all receiving at the moment. At the moment, we're getting £66 or £67 a month off our electricity bills, but that does finish in March unless you are a lower earner, you get state benefits, in which case you may continue to get grants. All of that information is on the Help for Households website. But also just checking that people are getting the state benefits they're entitled to. You know, often we don't know what we don't know. So the easiest thing is to go on to entitled2.co.uk. You fill out a quick questionnaire based on your own circumstances, and it will tell you whether it thinks there's any state benefits you can apply for, and then it will link you through to the gov.uk website where you can apply. But don't forget, and I mentioned this earlier, that there are lots of organisations out there at the moment that are providing charitable grants. So a lot of the energy providers have got charitable grants, but there's lots of other organisations as well. So the Turn to Us website, again, is where you can fill out an eligibility checker, and it will tell you whether there's any grants in your area that you might need, you could apply for to get that free money. If you need any help, or if the person you're talking to needs any help, they can also always go to Systems Advice, and they will fill out some of these online forms if people don't have that capability themselves, but most people through the workplace do. But the other last thing I wanted to mention, because I know lots and lots of people now taking advantage of this, if you want a little bit extra income, you can rent out furnished accommodation in your home and earn up to £7,500 a year for renting it out and not pay any tax on that money at all. You can charge more than £7,500. Let's say you charged £1,000 a month. That's fine. It's just that the first £7,500 is tax free. Anything you bring in over and above that, you'll pay tax at your marginal rate. So if you're a basic rate taxpayer, you'll pay 20% tax on that income. But I know lots of people like me who've got kids at uni, or maybe, you know, just even starting out on the housing ladder and have got a 2-bed place and they're only using one of them. This could be a way of getting extra income in to tide us over the next few months while energy costs are high. The other thing, and we're getting towards the end now, we'll have some time for questions, is to always encourage people when they're sorting out their finances to make sure, one, they know what company benefits they've got, and two, to make the most of them. You know, most companies will offer a range of benefits that support financial wellbeing. So things like, and I've mentioned just a few at the bottom, that employee assistance program that can give financial help and counselling. Employee discounts. Now, I don't know if you've got discount sites where you are. We've got one where I work now, and I do use it for my supermarket shop. So, for example, at Sainsbury's, I pay £95, I get a £100 voucher. Now, if I was spending £100 a week on food in Sainsbury's, saving £5 a week, then that's 250 quid across the year. So that's one area that you can really save money on work discount sites. The other one is I went to buy my child a new mattress for their bed. I'd never really looked on the discount sites before, just typed in mattresses, site came up, I put in the mattress that I wanted, found it on there, I got 50% off and 10% cash back. So do make the most of them if you've got them. But also, you know, there's going to be things like sick pay. Maybe some people have insurances they can buy through payroll that they can get more cheaply through work because there's a group discount rather than buying it individually. So company benefits should never be ignored because in the end, they can enable you to be as financially secure as possible. Now on this slide, I've just put some of the help and support out there. So from Money Helper, which has got brilliant articles and calculator tools and all sorts of things to help people with their money, through to Mind, where they're helping people with their emotional well-being, but they've got lots on finances. Money Saving Expert, this is the Martin Lewis website, is brilliant. There's a whole team of researchers that sit behind him. They're day in, day out looking for best insurances, best bank accounts, best credit cards. They've got that eligibility checker, an absolute wealth of information there. Of course, there's Step Change, which is one of the debt advisors. They've got a debt remedy tool, so you can put in what debt you've got and it gives you an action plan. And of course, on our website, we've got all sorts of planners and budget planners, food planners, things like that. I have also put the details. I don't know if Dawn's on today, but Dawn Cummins is the regional manager for the Money and Pension Service in East Midlands. The Money and Pension Service are driving the government's national financial wellbeing strategy, you know, and their target is to try to get 2 million more people dealing with their debt. Through kind of stronger engagement. They also have rolled out Money Guiders, which is a programme for anybody that might be dealing with people and money in their job. It's to help you to help others with their money situation. So I've just put her contact details there. And then finally, I've just brought it all together on this slide. You know, if you were talking to somebody else, even if you're dealing with your own finances, what should you be doing? So it's getting that budget in place. And I've put some information from Money Helper. They've got a great article on budgeting. Trying to find a way to reduce costs. things could be obvious that you're overspending on. So things like using food planning and those food and petrol apps. Making sure that you understand your credit score, because that in turn is going to help you to bring debt together to try and reduce interest rates. Is there any more income available that you just didn't know? So go through those eligibility checkers, entitled to, and turn to us. Make the most of benefits, and then refer to support services if needed. Right, that's all the detail that I was going to go through. I realize because you've been brilliant and typing stuff in, we have got about 5 minutes left, but I don't know if anybody has got any questions. Actually, I thought I'd put Trussell Trust on there. It's not on there, but I can always share the details afterwards if I need to. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask? I mean, one of the most popular questions I'm getting at the moment is around mortgages. You know, what should I be doing? Should I be trying to overpay the mortgage? But for a lot of people, that's just not going to be possible. But I would always say with debt and savings, the key is knowing your interest rates. You know, if your mortgage, you're only paying 1% interest for borrowing that money, but you can get 3% in a bank, then you might as well put your money in the bank and then at the end use whatever savings you've got to pay it off at that stage, because it would be counterproductive to pay off something that's a lower interest rate than what you could actually get in savings, but vice versa. Absolutely, I'll be sharing the slides. I know that Laura and Jenny and Zoe and the team are happy to share everything as long as you fill out the feedback form at the end, so that they can really understand whether you found this useful and to really inform the kind of sessions that you might want in future. I've also put together, thank you for sharing the surveys there. Zoe's just shared it in the chat. I've also put together a financial wellbeing toolkit for people. That's really just a summary of everything I've spoken about. So it's on one page and you can go, right, okay, that's where I go for budgeting apps. That's the food apps I've spoken about and so on. And again, you will get that handout if you fill in that feedback form. So I think I'll hand back over to you, Laura, or to Jenny, or if anybody wants to finish the session before we finish today.
Thank you, Sarah. That was really, really interesting. Lots and lots of information there. And obviously we will be sharing the slides, the recording and the toolkit that Sarah referenced there, again, on the basis that you do the evaluation, but a wealth of information, some really good resources there that I'm sure you can go and share back with your teams and share within the businesses where you work. So thank you very much, Sarah. It was a great session.
No problem at all. Lovely to see you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care to everyone.
Thank you all. Bye. Bye.